Hi there, this is Mr. Martinson. I'm here today to talk to you about how to recognize fake news. Some of what you're going to see comes from, probably the last 3 or 4 months. But let's talk about the idea of being able to spot fake news. So the idea here is, if you'd like to follow along, you can use this URL tiny.cc bias fake, or you can just watch this video. So here's what I've got for you. What we're talking about today is identifying biased sources and how do you know whether a website is reliable. I'm going to give a couple of headlines. One's from CNN, one's from Fox News, from about 3 months ago, about the Trump-Russia scandal. And I wanted to show the differences in the way that news is presented today. The CNN story says Giuliani associate implicates Trump in the Ukraine. And the Fox News story from the same source says that in a rare interview that undermines the claims that the Democrats were making. So it really varies in terms of how you look at reality based on the news source that you're looking at. So it is important for you to have some sense of what's real. And I think it's really hard today. I want to step back to kind of when I first started to notice this as a problem. These are a picture that showed up in my Instagram. It's a picture of some flowers from Fukushima. And Fukushima is a nuclear reactor that melted down in Japan right after there was an earthquake in the ocean. When the earthquake hit the ocean, it created a wave, a tsunami. That tsunami crashed on the shores of Fukushima, and there's a nuclear reactor on those shores. So it was working. And what happened was the power plant continued to operate. While it continued to operate, it built up pressure, and there was pressure released with nuclear steam, and that caused radiation to escape from the nuclear power plant. So this example of an Instagram picture is someone that went to that area and took some pictures and showed daisies that had been mutated from the radiation. The reality is there's some reasons why you might think that that's not true. I would guess that you might think it's probably dangerous to go to some place that's radiated. That's a possibility. Those of you with good eyes and are used to working with Photoshop will notice that this is something that can be done in Photoshop. It's just a mirror image trick that's part of Photoshop and was presented as a hoax, but people believed it. I want to show a video of something that's advertised on Burger King. I don't know if you can get it delivered to your home right now, but let's take a look at the video. Oh, it's not available right now, so we're going to skip past it. It is a hoax video that shows a chocolate Whopper being built. That chocolate Whopper is not real, but Burger King puts it on its website as a way to get people interested and to pass on a hoax as a way to do advertising. So it's a new way that we're doing advertising. So let's talk about some questions that you might want to think about for a moment. What does the term fake news mean? So fake news might mean news that someone believes isn't real. And that can vary based on your perception of reality. So we have people that disagree about what's real and what isn't real, and some people use the term to create their own sense of reality. So it's a complex question. Next question is to think of when you've fallen for fake or inaccurate news of some kind, and I can imagine during all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, there's probably several situations where someone has posted something or told you something that isn't necessarily true. So I think it's really important, and it's actually kind of critical for our own health to think about how we take in information and how we spread information, and be very cautious about it. Make sure you're spreading information that's accurate and that's fact-checked and is based on somebody that's an authority. And I think it's really important, right? Like, we are living in a situation where, because we may or may not have taken the virus as seriously as we should have, we are finding that things are becoming more difficult. So it is really important that we pay attention to what's real and that we're responsive to what's real in a hurry. I could talk about the Trump era. There's lots of examples of that. We've all kind of lived through this. One example would be this path of a hurricane. Last year, when the hurricane was coming, President Trump was talking about where the path of the hurricane was going to come, and he'd already tweeted that people in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama had to be careful because the hurricane was coming their direction. Well, the hurricane map that was presented by the Weather Service didn't have that in it. So he actually took a Sharpie and wrote in black on the side there where he felt like the hurricane might go, and presented that at a news conference. So fake news can be presented by people in the government. I think it's really unusual in the Trump era, and I think it's something that we have to pay attention to. But I would say really what's important today is to pay attention to CRAAP. So I think it's helpful for you to think of it like a good test. First of all, a good way to remember something is to take a swear word, break it down, and use the letters of that swear word to help you memorize something. So I created the CRAAP test as a way for you to be able to test what's real and what isn't real. And that really stands for currency. When was it published, posted, or last updated? How relevant is it? Does it relate to your topic or answer your question? Who's the author? Are they somebody that's qualified to say what they're saying? And how accurate is it? Can you check that from another source? Has it been reviewed? Did you find it on a printed article? Because that would mean that somebody's fact-checked it. And then last, and I think really important, when we're considering how things work in the use of the internet, know that everybody's got a purpose, and often that purpose is to persuade you with a point of view, so they may not be giving you all of the information. Sometimes the purpose is to inform people. Sometimes that purpose is to persuade you. So it's important for you to remember those things. And lots of things to keep track of in terms of thinking about fake news. Some things that will help you to identify whether something's absolutely fake or not is look for things like all caps in headlines. Look for pages that have pop-up ads, because that's somebody trying to make money off of your eyes at looking at a web page. Look for domains that look like they're real, but they're not. For example, you can find abcnews.com.co. .co is not a legit domain, but you could lose track of that and think that the story is coming from ABC News. You should also look for the dates, make sure that things are up to date. Often fake news is something that's old, that's republished. And then it's helpful for you to type fake and the site name and see what comes up, and you'll find out that somebody probably posted something to say whether something's real or whether it's fake. And last, I think it's really important, in the end, we have to gut check each other. We have to watch to see whether what you're seeing is something that you can trust. And last, really, really important, we all have social media or some way of being able to distribute things to each other. Don't share things that you don't necessarily believe, that you haven't checked the facts of. We're all part of the media now. I think it's important for you to remember that as well. I was going to maybe show you a video of, actually I'll put that in the links at after this video of a video that was made to make it seem like President Obama was speaking, but it actually wasn't. And the technology that's behind it was the ability to take a bunch of video, splice it together, and kind of create the ability for you to sound like and look like someone else. So with President Trump, there's been so many, or President Obama, there's been so many videos taken that it was easy for someone to create what seems like a real video, but it was actually just bits and pieces pieced together in a computer simulation. What I'd like to do then is talk about bias in the news. And actually, let me circle back to the idea of the CRAAP test and kind of step through this a little bit more in detail, and then we'll talk about bias. I think it is important for you to remember that what you're looking for this specific assignment should be published recently. You should be able to find out when it was published. If there's no date, that should tell you something. It's probably not something you should trust. It should be in the recent past. You should look to make sure that what you're finding fits the specific topic of the assignment. Does it relate to it? Make sure that the article that you're working with answers your question or works with the area of government that you're trying to focus on. Also, look for the author. You want to look to see that if it's coming from a published magazine or newspaper, that's a lot more quality. And the reason for that is someone had to if you publish something in print and it's wrong, you can be sued. If you publish something online and it's wrong, you can actually get away with it. So finding things that are also in print is really helpful. So look for newspapers and magazines that are actually in print as sources that you can trust. You should also ask yourself, who is this person? Who's the publishing company? Is it somebody that's trying to present news? Are they trying to present a certain point of view? And are they qualified to make that point? Last, I think it's helpful for you to look for accuracy. Double check it. Google that article and check to see if you can find that article in another source so you can prove that it's real or not. And also ask yourself, is this an article that's intended to give you a point of view only, or is it trying to give you a bunch of information that you can draw your own conclusion from? You want to find things that are giving you a bunch of information and not just giving you one perspective. So that's the CRAAP test. Remember to use that when you're doing this assignment. We'll pass through this. Sorry about that. And this. And let's talk quickly about biased news sources. Some things to look for in terms of bias in news sources is to just ask yourself to speak the words out loud. If you're saying it with a certain tone, or you can tell that it's coming from a certain point of view, that's a sign that it's got a bias. Look for absolutes in what you're reading. If the article has a lot of always and nevers and absolute terms, you're probably seeing something that's got one point of view. It's important for you to also to try to figure out what the purpose of the article is. If the purpose of the article is to try to give you a point of view, that's something you should probably avoid for this assignment. And last, I think it's helpful because I think images can tell you other stories. If there seems to be a certain perspective with the images in a story, that can tell you that it is just presenting one point of view or another. So this is sort of a shortened version of a much longer presentation, but I think it gives you the main stuff that you need in order to effectively be able to figure out what's crap and what's real. And I hope I can help you with that. If you need anything, feel free to stop by rahsmedia.org, especially with this assignment, and use one of our sources to find the information that you need to. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and have a good day.